Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the May 6, 2022 episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Tony Francisco. Tony, how you doing today, man?
Excellent, Ray. How are you doing today?
I'm beautiful. I mean, I don't have gorgeous waterfalls behind me, but every day is a good day, right?
In Florida, yes.
In Florida, absolutely. So I hear there's an arms race going on to who can be hacked the most, and we might have a new winner.
We do. Healthcare. Congratulations, you have been in the lead for the most ransomware attacks since the beginning. However, you have been leapfrogged. Telecom has overtaken the healthcare industry as the most frequent targeted sector of ransomware attacks and hijackers for the first 3 months of 2022. This is based on Cisco's Talos Unit's cybersecurity segment. While the ransomware, as reported at the MSSP alert, while MSSPs are focused on the security side, pulling these tools from Cisco has been critical in identifying that the telco industry is under huge threat. Even though ransomware was the top threat during the quarter, it made up only 25% of all the threats, slightly a drop from the 27% from the prior period. Attackers frequently exploited the high-profile and well-known Log4j vulnerability that we've also reported about here on this MSP Dispatch. The Wave browser, which is a supposed web browser, is potentially an unwanted program associated with this adware, and it's being used by hijackers and what Cisco's been using as its core data point in the telco industry discovery. Again, prior to this, the ransomware attack top target was the healthcare industry. Telco, congratulations, you have beaten them and you are now the top target, which is absolutely terrifying. Ray, you are so deep in the telco arena. What are your thoughts and what are you seeing?
You know, I've been proud of a lot of awards I've won over the years. This is not one I actually wanted. Can we give it back, please? So, I mean, it's not a surprise. And, you know, we were speaking the other day. I was speaking with some colleagues, and we're talking about how data is the new gold mine, right? That's the new gold rush. And telcos have a ridiculous amount of data between, you know, CPNI, customer proprietary network information, between, you know, PII, between, you know, we have access to conversations, recordings, records. The data is invaluable. I mean, when you want to talk about a gold mine for data, telco is absolutely where it's at. Telcos, ISPs, any infrastructure. These malicious actors are starting to get very smart about it, and it's no different than when they attack MSPs. They're going further and further upstream from their client because they realize the net's far wider, and you may not get the one client you were looking for, but you'll probably have 1,500, 1,600 other clients that you could gather data from. It absolutely makes sense to me. I hate to say it out loud because I'm not looking to entice anybody to do this. But, you know, within the telco circles, we've been talking for years about security. Anybody that's looked at SS7 signaling, anybody that's looked at the way messaging is done, just like BGP, it is horribly, I don't want to call it inept, but that's basically the way it's a house of cards. So when you start getting access to these old legacy infrastructures where, you know, it's far easier to gain access and then laterally move into other areas, telco makes a lot of sense. So, you know, and I think the hackers are becoming more mature in their operating model. They're becoming smarter about what targets they select, right? Or they're not specifically going after a single business anymore. They're going after what's going to net them the most return. And it just means we have to be more vigilant too. Now, on the positive side of things, we have some wins, right? For security, for developers at least. We have Tony, we have some positive for those of us using GitHub.
Speaking of a huge win, on Wednesday, the Microsoft-owned repository said that changes will be made to an existing authentication rule as part of a platform-wide effort to secure the software ecosystem through improving account security. In April, in combination to that, GitHub introduced a new scanning feature to protect developers to stop them from accidentally leaking secrets. The enterprise user feature is an optional check for developers to enable during the workflows before a Git is pushed. The combination of these two is a huge betterment for the developer world as a whole. 2FA, MFA should be something across the board that's implemented. We're so happy about this. Ray, what are your thoughts on MFA, 2FA in general? Do you feel like this should be a mandatory component, just like a username and a password? Or is this something that maybe should be explored a little bit further in other directions?
I'm doing my absolute best to maintain my composure because this is one of those things I want to get at the top of the tallest building and just scream, use MFA. What the hell is wrong with you? This is not even an option at this point, right? It's not a new topic. This is not like some fad coming and going. MFA is a base requirement, period. Yet Microsoft announced, they put out a study in February of this year saying there was a meager 22% adoption. In a blog by Malwarebytes, they quoted Microsoft as saying slow MFA adoption presents a dangerous mismatch in security, and which is ridiculous, right? Because I hear it from MSPs every day. They talk to their clients and the client doesn't want to put an app on their phone. I mean, hell, even the keys, right? Who was it? Yubico had a deal yesterday. Buy one, get one, almost 50% off. It was 54% off if you buy two. They're basically giving these things away. And please, if possible, don't use SMS for MFA. I barely count that as a second factor. But whether it's push app or whether it's a TOTP or whether it's a physical token, it doesn't matter. Use MFA anywhere it can be enabled. It needs to be enabled. And if it can't be enabled on your app, shame on you. And I'm not just talking about enablement, I'm talking about enforcement. So just like we were talking about the telco arena, where these malicious actors are moving more upstream because they realize further up in the supply chain, juicier targets. Same thing on the development side. GitHub has been an obvious play. Now, we've had MFA on GitHub for, I think, since day one. I'm glad they're enforcing it. Google went through and enforced this as well. This is real. It's ridiculous that we still have to keep having these conversations, but good on GitHub, good on Microsoft for enforcing these things, because I think that's the only real way we're going to get adoption. Uh, Tony, do you hear, you have non-technical friends also, right? I'm sure you have one or two. Do you ever hear them complain about, oh, I have to put a code every time I log in or anything like that?
I still remember people complaining about, an iPhone mandatory pin on my phone. Why do I have to put a pin on my phone? I'm fascinated by the variety of solutions for such a major issue that is not just in our industry. It covers every industry, and it's not just at a certain level. It's at every level in every industry. Everything from the development side of the code, the actual, the pushes of those to those repositories, to the publications, to the authentication of the users coming in for those publications, to the authentication of the servers that are supporting them, all the way to the authentication of the end user coming in at the top end, and everything in between. So if you have a YubiKey, if you have some type of biometric compatibility, something that is an MFA, 2FA for the multiple factor authentication, not just a tweet from, not to bag on Twilio, but a text from Twilio. But there's so much documentation around the older methods of 2FA. You have to evolve those methods. And there's so many that are readily available. Make those moves. Mandatory across the board is the beginning part. Maybe there should be multiple mandates to secure your customers, their customers, and all the users included. Totally agree with you. So speaking of exciting stuff, I saw your coverage on SMTP2Go. Can you please give us more detail on that?
So that's the story that keeps on giving. Notably, when we did the breaking news coverage, there are several people affected. There was the original blog. There was SMTP2Go, where the issue is actually being affected, and also ConnectWise we brought in because ConnectWise uses it for their hosted instances. They require all managed hosted customers to use their SMTP2Go instance, which brings in the MSP play. To that end, I was able to have an interview with the CEO of SMTP2Go. If we can bring on those questions. Unfortunately, due to personal issues, he wasn't able to come on video, but he did answer questions for us. So the first question I asked the person I interviewed was Charlie Abrahamson of Sand Dune Mail Limited. He is the CEO. They are the name of the company that owns SMTP2Go. First question I asked, when were they first notified of this vulnerability? The answer given was back in January. However, it wasn't classified as a vulnerability by them, given that the emails don't pass DMARC checks. And an attacker could achieve this exact same thing using another SMTP server they have access to, such as they set up themselves for their ISP's SMTP server. In saying that, it would have been much better for us to act on this months ago. Second question, I've seen that SMTP2Go has modified their recommended setup to not use SPF records anymore. When were the current recommendations implemented? We modified our setup not to require include spf.smtp2go in customers' domains SPF records anymore back in 2019. Question, how was the change in recommendation communicated to your clients? Answer, we sent the email to customers advising about this at the time. However, there is no security risk involved, given the fact that we rewrite the return path to use one of our own domains for any email that is not sent with a verified sender domain in the sender's account. Question, can you advise what percentage of your customers are using the new CNAME method via the SPF method? Answer, it's difficult to calculate usage right now. It is done on a per SMTP user or per API key basis, but the percentage is very low. They will be all switched within a couple of days. We were just waiting for some difficult to reach customers to add their sender domains in, but it looks like we should just push ahead and make the change. Question, you mentioned you are going to be requiring domain validation in the future. What is the timeline for this? This interview was conducted on May 4th, 2022, at the time of our breaking news alert. This answer was given at that point in time. His answer was, I'm going to get this pushed out within 24 hours for new customers and then 3 to 4 weeks for existing customers to give them time to add sender domains if they haven't already. Note that Mailgun, Postmark, Mandrill, and many other competitors have gone through the same process, and we are just a bit late to follow this, unfortunately. Our current sending practices don't allow emails to pass DMARC checks that shouldn't, or get signed by a DKIM domain that it shouldn't get signed with. I will give an update that as of yesterday, all new accounts, that is as of May 5th, all new accounts with SMTP2Go do require domain validation. Existing accounts do not yet. So that is an update. Question, I found a decommissioned vulnerability disclosure program, VDP, at HackerOne, and I give the link we'll include in the show notes below. However, it had been decommissioned. Does SMTP2Go have a current VDP or bug bounty program? Answer, yes, we currently have a live HackerOne bug bounty program, and there's a new link which we'll include in the show notes below. Question, what is your opinion of the vulnerabilities listed in the blog by Stephen Murphy? Answer, I think they aren't valid. He's saying that having spf.smtp2go in your SPF record is a risk, but we don't send emails with a return path at a domain a customer tries to use, unless they have verified that sender domain in their own account. I'm having a call with him in the next few minutes to discuss this. Again, this was at the point in time of May 4th, 2022. Last question, is there anything else you'd like our audience to know? Answer, we've been a trusted ESP for over a decade with thousands of enthusiastic and supportive customers. In addition to this, ConnectWise's Chief Security Officer, Patrick Beggs, did release a statement yesterday. It goes as this: we put security for our partners at the top of our priority list. Email security remains one of the most active arenas for potential threats, which is why we encourage all of our partners to work closely with SMBs to ensure that they have the highest email security protection in place. That link is a link back to their Trust Center, where they also put out a notice at 11 a.m. on May 5th. Related to this issue, raised recently about ConnectWise Managed leveraging SMTP2Go for sending emails, we want to provide some insight. When the concern was first raised to us, we reviewed it and confirmed that spoofed emails cannot be sent using Manage. While not a vulnerability nor a security issue for Manage, it potentially posed a risk for SMBs who were not adequately protected following steps outlined in our setup process. And again, a link to the setup to configure DKIM for secure email delivery. We'll include that link in the show notes below. Ensuring appropriate email configuration is one of the best ways to prevent email spoofing that could be used for phishing. Fortunately, we work closely with our vendors like SMTP2Go. As a result, they have already implemented a change to ensure all new email domains are verified. We expect they will share this information soon. We appreciate the consistent partnership in the MSP community to find, raise awareness of, and address potential security issues quickly. To discuss this, we bring on noted security researcher Jason Slagle of CNWR. How you doing today, Jason?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good, man. So you were one of the small group that had access to this information back in January and researched it. And I know we've been working together closely since, including up until yesterday, going back and forth using the responses that were given by Charlie, and you've been in contact with ConnectWise. What is your take on this? You see that SMTP2Go says that it's not a vulnerability. What is your take on this?
So I actually agree with them that this isn't necessarily a vulnerability. Where I kind of landed with it, I kind of ran the entire roller coaster over the past 2 days as I went through this and I researched more. And I spent a bunch of time researching what would work and would not work. So from a high level standpoint, Charlie's right that this isn't really a vulnerability. You could do many of the same things he's saying with other email providers if you configured the SMTP server in a particular way. Where I took issue with what he said, and I actually had my own conversation with him yesterday, is I take issue with the fact that he's pushing this return path rewrite as a security feature when the reality of it is it's a deliverability feature, right? So in a normal world, if he left the return path of the spoof domain, right? So like if you were sending as my domain, if he left that email from address as my domain, then it would fail to deliver via SPF, even if you had even if you did not have DMARC set up. But because he rewrites that to be his own domain, he actually bypasses the SPF check. And those emails will happily deliver with DKIM and SPF signed with his own domain's return header. And I tested this yesterday pretty extensively and was, with 100% success, able to get messages into my inbox past both Mimecast and Office 365's filters on any domain that did not have DKIM setups or DMARC set up properly, right? So this security thing that he's using to claim that this isn't a security vulnerability actually makes the problem worse for anyone not running DMARC.
And this is specifically affecting partners or anybody using SMTP2Go. And to be fair, this is not just SMTP2Go in the ability to create this. Any email provider that has you include their SPF records that does the rewrite of the header, that when you do not have DKIM enforced, could be subject to this. Just SMTP2Go is the only one that we know of that is actively doing this, correct?
Yeah. So the SPF record actually has no bearing here because of the rewrite he's doing, right? So like he actually, based on the work he did, neutered the SPF record so that even if you don't have it in place, you'll get deliverability. Because he rewrites the domain. So, from my perspective, where this becomes a problem, it's not necessarily vulnerability, but it's definitely bad internet behavior on his part because he is running a service that is trusted, that has high mail volume, and basically allows you to send as an unverified domain, and he helps you out with deliverability and rewrites that in a way that's more likely to deliver in a box than if he had just left it alone.
I did ask the follow-up question of after the change in domain validation was added yesterday, that it is now a requirement for new accounts. Does that affect existing accounts? Are they able to add new domains that are not validated and still send us those? He did not give me an answer to that. So we'll leave that pending out there. As I said, we have been in constant contact with Charlie Abrahamson. So if he wants to give us that answer, we will post an update on that.
So for what it's worth, I can send as any domain from my account. I don't have any accounts verified, and I can send as any domain.
And that's as recent as last night after his
update. As recent as yesterday.
Okay. So we'll leave it with that. Whether this is a security vulnerability or not, we'll leave it up to you, the audience, to make your own decisions. We definitely want to hear back from you. We've tried to cover all the bases for you to form your own opinions. Please let us know in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter or shoot us an email, news@mspmedia.tv. And we'll definitely be sure to bring those up at next week's episode. Jason, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it, man.
No worries. See you next time.
Thanks, Jason.
As a follow-on to Tuesday's coverage of Enable's rebranding of their standalone product into Cove Data Protection, Enable was gracious enough to conduct an interview with us. I was joined by Stefan Voss of Enable. He is the VP of Product Management, and he gave us the why, the when, and the what happened with the rebranding. Be sure to check the links below. We'll include link to the full interview. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, hit us up in the comments or reach out to us at our Twitter and email.
And here's some upcoming events this next week. Don't forget about MSP Dispatch every Tuesday and Friday, giving you the best news out there. And something I'm going to attend is the Tech Bar podcast coming up next Thursday evening with Alex Farling. The show notes will have all these links and details in them. Take a peek below and attend some of these events. They're great.
And that's it for MSP Dispatch on this May 6, 2022 episode. You're a source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. We want to hear from you. We want to hear if these stories were relevant, if they affected your daily life, and what else you want covered. Please hit us up in the comments below, hit us up on Twitter, or email news@mspmedia.tv. mspmedia.tv. Sorry about that. Tony, thanks so much for your commentary and insight. As always, it's been enlightening.
Absolutely, Ray. Thank you so much for the coverage. Really excited to talk about the security stuff. If you're watching this show, we're covering this stuff. Ray is on top of it. He's inside it. He's involved in it. It's awesome to watch this stuff unfold.
And I'll be looking for my Telco Hacker Trophy later on. Until next week, MSP Media Network family, take care of yourselves and each other.
Take care, everyone.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.